Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. With me this evening is Jeffrey Landman. He has appeared in movies, on stage, and done some stunt work, and more. Thanks for joining me tonight.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. That was some fun little jazzy music there.
I'm glad you liked it.
That was unexpectedly jaunty.
It's supposed to be kind of fun and silly.
Twas. Hi.
Well, hello. Well, let's jump right into it. We'll start at the beginning. Your first role on Broadway, you were really young when you got that. How long before that did you realize you were interested in performing?
Pretty much very, very early on in my life. My family always jokes that I sort of came out of the womb knowing I was going to be a performer. It was always there. And then at about age 10, I decided to do something about the interest and started my career very, like you said, very young at age 10. And it was just always there.
What was like your first audition? Was this before Broadway that you did plays or anything, or you just...
My first professional audition was for the Mickey Mouse Club, and I didn't get it, but that led to my second audition, which was for Les Mis, and I went from audition to being on Broadway in about 3 weeks.
That's amazing.
I know.
That doesn't just happen like that.
And then a month after I left the show, I was shooting Halloween 5. So it all happened really, really quickly.
Oh, really? Well, yeah, you were very young on both of those. Well, tell me about your Broadway experience with Les Mis.
So it was amazing. I had never done any work before, certainly nothing at that level. I had done, shows at the Jewish Center, but nothing beyond that. And I went to this audition, ended up working on Broadway 3 weeks later, and was only in Les Mis for about a month or so because Halloween 5 came along. And I just had a great time. It was right around the second anniversary of the show. So it's still, sort of like where Hamilton is today. It was still the hottest thing in New York. It was still a very big deal. And I'm so grateful to have had that experience and also to have shared that with, at the time there were 5 kids in the show. So it was great to not only be doing that, but to be doing it with a group of kids who I still speak to this day. It's been 30 years. And I'm still in touch with those kids from Les Mis. And it was just a really great time and a great way to start my career.
That's fantastic. Now that's iconic itself, Les Mis. So, you've been a part of at least a couple of very iconic things.
To Halloween, I sort of started at the apex, and where was I going to go from there?
Yeah, I mean, you're at the top. So you've done some other Broadway too, Falsettos.
I did a show called Falsettos that I did about 4 years after Les Mis, and I did that on tour, and then took the show to Broadway and closed it there. Did that for a little under a year.
Cool. Now, you've continued your stage work. That wasn't just in your childhood. You've continued it all the way up to your adulthood. You've done, I think, plays in Los Angeles, where you're at now. And is there any particular that stick out that are like, oh, I really, really enjoyed this experience?
Yes. However, it's sort of hard to say that about anything except Les Mis or Falsettos when you're doing, iconic Broadway shows at the highest level of performance. It's sort of everything else is going to pale in comparison. But I, knock on wood, have been very, very lucky in my career. And I've always had work that was challenging and fun and different and interesting.
That is great. That is great. I mean, I've done many plays myself, and I understand not being able to go, well, this one particular, because they're all, I'm sure, have their memorable moments and are just great parts of your life most of the time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get right to, since you've already brought up Halloween 5. At a very young age, like you said, you landed the role of Billy in one of the biggest horror franchises of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how did that come along? Like right after Les Mis, did you have to go out to Los Angeles to audition, or was it in New York?
It was all done in New York. It was all the auditions and all of that was done in New York, and it was while I was in Les Mis. Just had auditions and met with the casting agent, I think, about 4 times. Never met a director, never met a writer, never met a producer, never met Danielle, any of that until I got on set. But really? Again, that all happened very quickly. It was all less than a month from the audition to shooting. And I was doing Les Mis at the time. I remember distinctly my mother was mad at me because at my final Halloween callback, I forgot to mention that I was leaving Les Mis that week. So my mom was like, they're going to think you're booked in Les Mis and you're too busy. So I remember that. And it was my birthday. So
but they didn't.
They didn't
think
someone was smiling down on me on that birthday.
That is fantastic. Just like I said, how does that happen? That doesn't happen to everybody in the business. So what an amazing experience.
Very fortunate, very young to have all that happen really quickly. And to just sort of luck into being in an iconic franchise. It could have been, I just as easily could have booked any other movie that wasn't in such an iconic franchise.
You would have done it. It would have been cool. And then it would have probably disappeared from most people's minds. Yeah.
I wouldn't be here 30 years later still talking about it necessarily. So I am very grateful that and honored to be part of the Halloween canon.
That's so cool that you're appreciative of it. And obviously appreciate the fans and
very much
are down to do silly things like this show. So that's thank you.
Nothing silly.
Well, thank you. Well, and speaking of, you've been on all the big documentaries covering the Halloween franchise. You did the main audio commentary track for Halloween 5 with Danielle Harris and the director. So you get asked the same questions all the time, I'm sure. All the time. Is there anything
trying to stump me?
I don't know if this will do it, but this is kind of, I'm actually throwing it at you. Is there anything that you don't get asked about the film that you would think fans would find really interesting?
No one really, this happens occasionally, but no one really brings up the bicycle. So in the original script, Billy was meant to be a BMX bike racer. And the entire car chase scene was initially scripted to take place with Danielle and I on a bicycle. And the car was supposed to hit the bicycle and I was going to flip over the car and then he was going to back up and run over me. And after one day of filming, they cut the bicycle. I think it just became too difficult in that the first scene I shot day one is a scene I ended up getting cut out of in the daytime. There's a scene where you see Tina and Sammy going into the Carruthers house and Michael's watching them and then he ends up killing Rachel, or it's just after he killed Rachel when they find her. I was supposed to be in that scene with them and I would ride up on the bicycle with the dog and then chat and then we'd move on. I think they cut that for a couple of reasons. They cut, if you notice, all references to me being outside the clinic. Because initially Billy was not a patient at the clinic, but the way it was cut sort of implies that I am. So they cut every instance. There were references where Loomis would say to me, how come you're not in school today? Like all that was cut, which might be the reason. But after shooting that, they cut the bicycle stuff. It turned what should have been an hour to shoot into half a day. Just already there was so much with the dog that they were like, adding a bicycle on top of that is just difficult. So that got cut after one day of filming.
With the car chasing.
The car chase stayed, but it was just now they're going to have you running instead of being on the bicycle.
Which was still super dangerous. I've heard you say on like the commentary track.
Danielle and I have both said in hindsight, we're like, I would never do that car chase now the way we did it then. Not that our parents, I always like to say our parents were there. All safety measures were in place. But as an adult, I'd be like, you are crazy. I am not running in front of a car chasing me, which we actually did. Yes, it was a stunt driver. Yes, it was only going 20 miles an hour, but we were 10-year-olds running with a car chasing us
at night. Yeah.
At night, in the middle of the night for weeks at a time. We shot in that, all of that in a weird, a lot of movie magic doesn't really play out the way it appears on screen, but the layout of the farm was pretty much what it was. So the farmhouse, the scene where Sammy and Spitz are having sex in the barn, like all of that and the field and the trees and the forest, all of that was where it sort of feels like it is when you're watching the movie. It wasn't different sets in different places. So we were in that field for like 3 to 4 weeks every night from sundown to sunup. So,
that's rough.
It was rough, but
what was it? Was it cold out there? Was it a summer night? Yeah.
They bought us. It was May, but it was still cold. And, we had huge down jackets that we were wearing over our costumes covered in blood. But, they did everything they could to keep us comfortable. But I think more about the girls that were really wearing the skimpy outfits. I at least had pants and a jacket.
Like the tights and things that the air was just going through.
It was just, they had barely any clothing on in the cold. We at least had full clothing.
Oh, out in the chat, Off the Grill podcast, Steak Sauce says he loves that commentary track that you're on with
Thank you.
Halloween.
I hadn't seen Dominique I forget when we did that, maybe 10, 15 years ago. So I hadn't seen him in like 15 years, and it was great to reconnect.
Sorry. So I'm looking at some notes. Are you a horror movie fan at all? Like all around?
Not really. I mean, no. I am, just by the nature of being a part of it. I do watch the Halloween movies because I feel like it's my job and I enjoy them. I have not seen Halloween Kills yet, so don't ask me about it. I haven't seen it. I do enjoy the more classic, iconic horror movies. The Exorcist, Carrie, that sort of movie I enjoy. But like I said, I'm not the world's largest horror movie fan outside of the Halloween movies, which obviously have a very near and dear place in my heart.
Well, that brings up my next question of that, actually from my friend Corey Ross. He said, have you watched any of the other Halloween movies or all the other Halloween movies? And if yes, what are your thoughts on the franchise?
Like I said, I have not seen Kills yet. It's just been a crazy week. I really enjoyed Halloween 2018. I actually didn't want that to be a horror movie. I was like, let's do a sequel where it's just a like intense drama about PTSD and what women have to go through after trauma. They opted to still make it a slasher, but fine. I really liked it. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it injected a really nice bit of new blood into the series. And I don't know how, but I'm grateful for the fact that Halloween somehow tends to be one of the only big franchises that is continually reinventing itself without, in my opinion, losing much of its integrity. How many times have they rebooted? I think someone did the math and there's like 7 different timelines.
It's a few, and I think it aggravates a lot of fans, but
I like to think I'm the original timeline because our timeline was what I think is now being called the Thorn trilogy. But that timeline was, what they were planning before reboots happened. So I'll stick with that.
I agree with that. To me, you are in the main original series timeline.
I agree.
Totally.
I think anything that keeps this franchise alive is good by me. If Halloween 2018 hadn't come out, I doubt we'd be sitting here today talking about this. The fans are very passionate and are happy with the reboots, as I am. And as long as the fans are happy, then I'm happy to be a part of the family and support whatever changes they choose to make to the timelines.
I am glad it's been kept alive, but I'm not saying we would still possibly be sitting here talking. I think even if the Halloween 2018 didn't come out.
Fair enough.
Because I'm a big fan of the original run.
Me too.
I think, yeah. Like I said, I'm not going to drown you with same old questions you're asked at Halloween 5. There's places out there that they can find your, tons of your answers to the same stuff you've been asked. Do you do conventions though?
I try. I've done a few, not as many as I'd like to, just because of scheduling and all of that. I'm always looking to do more. I really love cons, and I really enjoy meeting the fans and, getting that reminder that this little thing I did 32 years ago matters to people. And it's really cool. And it's something that I can never lose. It's always going to be a part of my life story. There's always going to be a Michael Myers doll somewhere in my house. It's always going to be a part of the story of my life. And I'm so happy when I get to share that, when, other people want to share that.
Well, yeah, you're part of something that's going to be around a very long time, if not forever in history. So what an amazing thing.
I'm very, very lucky.
Now, right after that, or not too long after that, you appeared in a couple more films. Maybe not quite as a major role as Billy, but...
And not as obvious. So I know what you're getting at. And in both those movies, I'm not actually in the movie. I did singing for the movie. So, for
Okay.
example, Life with Mikey. When you watch the movie, there's a part where you see the Life with Mikey TV show, and I sang the theme song. And I did some other singing in the movie and dubbing for some of the actors who had to sing. Same in Home Alone 2. I did some vocal dubbing for some of the singing.
I was wondering that. Okay. Well, thank you. You answered that question. My next one is, what's MTV Give Me Back My Life? What is that?
It was actually a show on Comedy Central, one of the first original programs they did on Comedy Central. It was sort of an early version of a roast. So it was basically a Harvard Lampoon TV show on Comedy Central. And I was on the episode about, it was a spoof of the history of MTV. And I played Mark Goodman, who was one of the first VJs. And I played him as a child in this TV show on Comedy Central.
Oh, so you were still young with that when you did that one. Do you remember what year?
Probably, I want to say I was in high school, but yes, I was still a minor.
Okay. Well, you've done other music too, and you were on the soundtrack for the Magic School Bus.
That one I sing the theme song for.
So every episode, the main theme song, you're in that?
I'm on every episode of Magic School Bus, singing backup for Little Richard.
That's fantastic.
Same with Gullah Gullah Island, which is a less known show from Nickelodeon, from Nick Jr. rather. That also I sing the theme song to that show as well.
I remember that show. I was a little old to watch it, but I do remember it being on.
I had to look up the theme song recently on YouTube to be like, I don't remember this, because I remember pretty much everything I did, but that one for some reason I didn't remember, and I looked it up and I was like, oh yeah, I remember that now. That's familiar. That's me.
Gullah Gullah Island, something.
I just remember that now. I just remember Gullah Gullah.
Well, that's you. Anybody out there who wondered? Now, do you get that asked often of you, like with the Magic School Bus or the singing on the
singing career comes up a lot, because I was also I was probably the number one child male studio singer in Manhattan for most of the 90s. So I did hundreds upon hundreds of commercials in the 90s where it was my voice singing.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you did just really continue to work in the business.
I never stopped. From the moment I started in Les Mis, 32 years later, I've never stopped working, and I've never stopped just pursuing this as the career I've always wanted. And I've been, again, knock on wood, very, very lucky.
Oh, well, I wish you continued success with that for sure, man. That's just fantastic to be able to do that. I know a bit how it works. I was out in LA for 15 years, and I've moved back to the Midwest since. But
where are you?
I'm in Iowa now. Okay. I grew up here, but like I said, I moved out to Los Angeles in 2003 and was out there till about 2018. And did a lot of commercial work behind the scenes and things like that. Yeah. Jamie Hart, a friend of the community, and she has her channel. She says she remembers Mark Goodman. Yeah.
He was, for people in their 50s, let's say, he's very famous. And people who have studied the pop culture history, he is a huge part of pop culture, being one of the original VJs on MTV. So I'm glad he's remembered. I don't even know what he's up to now. I should Google that.
I kind of remember it from my youth too. Well, you mentioned earlier you did backup vocals with Little Richard, but also I read Gloria Estefan and Michael Jackson as well. Can you tell me about those?
Those were actually both Christmas songs, and neither one was released. So there you go. I as part of my studio singing career, my booker hired me to do this recording one day, and I walk in the studio and there's Michael Jackson. And there were about 5 of us that did this recording of a Christmas song for him. This was around 93, 94, something like that. And it was right when History, that album.
Oh, yes.
The song unfortunately didn't make the cut.
Oh, man. Did you get a copy of the song?
I don't. And I recently did an interview a couple months ago. I did a podcast with Michael's main engineer, who does a podcast about all of Michael's career and his music. And so I did that, and I asked him, he was going to try and track down some of the footage from that day and all of that, and it never materialized. That stuff's very, very heavily guarded.
Oh. And was that the same thing with Gloria Stefan then too? Oh.
Yeah, that stuff, if it's not released, it tends to be unreleased for a reason.
Okay. Well, I'm sure it wasn't you.
It was totally me. I'm just going to take it. It's my fault.
Gloria I blame you for it.
Never recovered from that one recording session.
Damn. All right, this next one I'm also not sure. I think this is semi-recent because it was on Disney Plus, the show Encore.
Yes.
What was your involvement in that?
I was just hired to be on the Fiddler on the Roof episode. So the show it's on Disney Plus, and it's basically a high school reunion show where people get back together to perform the musical they did in high school for one performance only. And then they supplement it with professionals. So I was brought in for a Fiddler on the Roof episode. That was very fun. It was a fun week. You know, it's sort of fun shooting a reality show, especially one where everyone is trying to be nice to each other. It was very nice.
Cool. I love hearing good experiences on set.
Yeah, I recommend it. Still on Disney Plus. You can see me a little bit, not as much, because obviously the focus was on the people having their high school reunion, not the professionals. But it was a really fun week, and something I'm really proud to have been a part of.
I will definitely have to check that out.
I think it's episode 6, but it's the Fiddler on the Roof episode.
And again, just the fact that the variety of work that you've done, it's pretty amazing, man.
I've been very lucky to sort of branch out in all different directions.
Well, last but not least in my research, you've done work as a stuntman?
Yes, I, pre-COVID, was working in a stunt show at Knott's Berry Farm. So I've been doing that for about 4 years, and they trained me in gunfights and cracking whips and all of that. So I don't do anything too crazy.
So what made you want to like get into stunts after, doing singing and acting? And
the director called me.
Yeah, it was like, hey,
that's simple.
You think you can do this?
We'll train you. Someone that could be funny, and he knew me from other work that we'd done, and he said, "Hey, do you want to come do this gig?" And the rest is sort of history.
Cool. And that was just at Knott's Berry Farm?
Yeah.
In their stunt shows. Those are pretty crazy. I've seen a few of those. So
yeah, it's fun. It's a very fun show. We're hoping to reopen shortly. I'm still waiting to hear back, post-COVID, what's going to happen with the show. But it's very fun. And, it's always good. I really enjoy theme park work and live performance. It's a very specific type of work when you're dealing with people in a theme park and on vacation. And it's just a different relationship between the performer and the audience. And I've really grown to love it.
And their energies probably with the audience is just always up because they're on vacation.
To have a good time. They're on vacation. It's just very fun.
Well, this next question, because of COVID, might not have anything in the near future, but do you have any projects coming up? No, just no.
No.
Darn it.
No, it's still, especially in Los Angeles, it's still picking back up from COVID. It's still not as busy as the normal year at this time would be. But, we all survived a very rough couple of years, and I can be patient until everything is back up and running normal.
And I believe it will be back.
We'll be back. We'll get back.
Yeah. Well, is there anywhere people watching can reach you or check out anything? Do you post public stuff on social media?
Jamie Hart also just said that a fellow Buffaloian, is that the word? I left Buffalo when I was a child. I was born there, but I left when I was about 4. So I have no real Buffalo references, but I had to give that shout out after seeing that in the comments.
Heck yeah.
You can find me on social, Jeffrey Landman. I don't at the moment really have anything to promote, but everything that I do promote is there. And just taking it day by day.
That's all we all can do. Truly
and
is.
Promoting, I think Halloween 5, I don't know when it's on tonight, but I know it's on like a lot this weekend on AMC. So
I was gonna say it's got to be running. And if you don't own it, go buy it.
I get the ads on Facebook for AMC, and they're always like Halloween Marathon. So I know it's airing on AMC. I don't have the specific dates, but check it out. Also, the new HD HD box set just came out. So I hope everyone will enjoy that. I don't think there's anything new involving me on there. It's the commentary track that was on the last one and the new bonus. I know that there's other features, or sorry, there's footage of the original car chase before it got cut down.
Oh.
And I know it's out there and I'm waiting for them to release it, but it hasn't been released. I have not heard that it's on the new DVD. Just the original opening of the movie is there. So hopefully maybe the next one they will put out, because one of the things about Halloween 5 is that it was rated X initially, mainly because of the violence against children. So hopefully someday they can release some of that footage.
The unrated.
Just the footage was full unrated cut.
Well, at least maybe we can get it on a special feature, like you said.
Not hopefully.
Fingers are crossed. Well, if you get a chance in the future when conventions start back up, people, go check out Jeffrey. Amazing guy.
Convention people, you want me?
Yes,
send an
definitely.
Email. Book Jeffrey Landman. Send that in.
Send it in.
I'm down. I have a laptop. I'll go anywhere.
And as you can see, it's great to talk to. Wonderful to the fans. And again, thank you so much for coming on tonight.
This is my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure, truly. So everybody, we will see you next time. Hopefully, maybe some new projects come up. We can connect again.
Great. Have a great night, everyone. Bye.
Good night.